Weight pull me forward. Slowly feeling a stretch through the calves, into the hamstrings, into the glutes. At the gym pretty late today. Had some internet issues at home and needed someone to come fix it. It took longer than expected. After which, I decided to go to the barber and get a haircut and my beard trimmed. It's been probably at least 8 years, maybe more, since I've had my hair this short. So there's that. In any case, I wanted to start off today's video by showing off a little bit of what I do to warm up, or showing what I do to warm up, not showing off what I do. That didn't sound right, but yeah, showing what I do to warm up. So usually, for lower body, it's usually the backward treadmill, which I haven't done yet. But with for upper body, I usually start with the individual lat pull down machine. So I'll hold individual handles and then I'll move my body side to side and try to connect with the muscles in my shoulders and upper back and just kind of stretch them out. Let the weight on the cable kind of pull it. And then I'm moving around side to side, feeling the contraction, or if not feeling the stretch. I'm rotating my arm as I do it and I'm noticing all the little tightness and anything that feels out of place. And then if I feel like I've hit sort of a sweet spot, I'll let the weight kind of slowly pull it out. And then I'll do some rows or some pull downs. While doing the pull downs, I'll play around with how I get into the stretch. So I'm looking away now. So what looking away does is it stretches certain muscle fibers coming from the neck into the upper clavicle, chest, which connect into the shoulders. It also connects into the trap, and so by looking away and kind of playing around with my jaws position, I'm able to feel all these little intricacies in the upper chest shoulder area. Rotating away, turning in as I pull, further kind of gets my body acquainted with everything in that area. And then I'll also do some scapular retractions. There's no real rep range with all of this. With the warm-ups, I'm going purely by feel, but I'll maintain a similar sort of pattern where I'm moving side to side, because moving side to side, all of these muscles are connected. So stuff that's connected on the top here is even connected into the upper abs here. And by giving enough time, so my job is a desk job, so I'm rounded forward, which is also why I'm seated away, because when I'm seated away, the cable pulls my body up and to the back, and which has more of an opening effect rather than if I face the other way, where it would be pulling me up but forward, still rounding myself out a little. By staying here, I'm able to kind of have it pull up and to the back which is, at least for me, feels a little better. Looking away, away, looking away, and stretch and lean. Jaw position, and by jaw position I mean like looking up or down. So like with most lifts, I have a tendency of doing this. So when I do this, the kind of stretch I feel in that area feels a lot different than if I did it otherwise. Rotating the wrist too, which changes things a little. Scapular stuff. Then another thing that I like to do is with the kettlebell, I like to do this thing where I do shoulder rotations. So here I'm have my shoulder kind of loose. I'm using the momentum of the weight kind of uh, do the movement for me. I'm not necessarily trying to actively move it through the exact path. It's more of a momentum based exercise. So I'm going to do these two for a little bit, which helps me warm up my upper body. Then uh then I don't know if I'm going to do backward walking today. I don't plan on doing too much lower body stuff today. uh yeah, but we'll see. I might. So for lower body warm up, I usually do backwards walking for about 20 minutes, sometimes 30. I would say on average about 25 minutes. So this is a manual treadmill, which pretty much means it doesn't move if I'm not moving on it. And I can adjust the resistance on it with like a lever on the side. And so I usually have, it goes up to level 10, and I usually have it at around 6. And essentially what that does is it makes it feel as if I'm walking backwards on a slight incline, where I have to actually use muscular effort to move backwards. Um, and the reason I'm doing it backwards is because, it helps with mobility. So, with most daily activities where you're sitting down, you're walking forward, even let's say you're not doing or let's say you're doing squats, even most people tend to stop at 90 degrees or a little below. So your knee never really gets to experience a position in which the knee is over the toe. But while walking backwards, with each step backwards, the knee is over the toe. So what I mean by that is, if you look, that's a step back. Here, the knee is over the toe. So doing a lot of backwards walking conditions the knee to be in that position, which seems to be the position in which most people either get knee pain or get injured. And so by doing backwards walking, you're able to condition your knee to being in that position a lot, and so I like doing backwards walking for that reason. If you don't have a treadmill, you can just walk backwards outdoors or anywhere else that you can walk backwards. Um, then I keep kind of doing this for 20-25 minutes. Occasionally, I'll turn forward and move forward as well. While moving forward, I'm making sure that my toes plant into the treadmill first so that I get a good stretch of the toes too. I'll do this for about 20 to 30 seconds and then switch back into backwards walking. So the reason for preferring or spending more time doing backwards walking than forward walking is because most of daily movement you do it forward. It's backward walking that we don't really do in our day-to-day lives, and so I do much more volume in the gym going backwards. Another thing is backwards walking targets the quads really well, specifically a muscle called the VMO, which is right above the knee on the inner side. Uh, Having a good VMO helps with, having good quad muscles in general is good, but the VMO helps with getting into deep knee bend positions and stuff like that. So yeah, this is the tail end of my 20 minutes on the backwards treadmill. A combination of this and what I do on the lat pull down machine earlier is what most of my gym warm-ups consist of. And usually, so this also is kind of like steady low intensity cardio, low intensity steady state cardio, and that's like good enough to get the heart rate going, not too high, enough to break a sweat a little without taxing the body too much. And so it definitely is one of my preferred ways of warming up. Also, it is something that's like pretty easy to do that I don't have to think too much about. Like, I'm just taking steps backwards. While doing this, I'm able to brainstorm about what exercises I want to do today, what I'm feeling like doing, and also like the warm up is kind of so I've mentioned earlier, like if I don't feel like working out, or if I'm feeling sluggish or just feeling lazy, I still have cultivated this habit where I'll come to the gym. By doing these first two exercises warm up, I know there's something to start off with always, and I don't necessarily have to jump right into anything. And when I do these things, usually uh, like I'm breaking a sweat, the endorphins start firing a little, and I get into a state that's more willing to work out, let's say, and then I just kind of like go with the flow of that, or try to build that momentum and keep moving forward, and then whatever comes to my mind, I start. And like, so right now I see a safety squat bar. I don't know if it's going to be a part of the workout or not, but then it starts getting me thinking, I haven't used that recently. I wonder what I could come up with that, and stuff like that. Or like, what kind of workout am I going to do today? Is it going to be a combination of legs and something else, or or do I do like a lower body, upper body superset workout or something? Like, these are all the thoughts that are going through my mind. And then slowly I'll start thinking of these thoughts and think of exercises that I can do that fit that frame. And then I put something together on the fly. But yeah, that's it for the warm up. Let's move into the first exercise. So I've decided to do a full body workout, but I'm not gonna use heavy weights, and heavy is relative. So what's light for me might be heavy for someone else, or might be too light, uh, or what I consider light might be heavy for someone else, or what I consider light might be too light for someone else. So use the weights accordingly. It's not even about rep range, it's really about how you feel with the weight. Like, are you comfortable uh, with it, pretty much. So I like doing the sled as one of the exercises, or I'm going to start off with the sled, reverse sled drag, and forward sled. But usually I tend to go back to this movement a lot because it utilizes the full body, and so it's a pretty easy way to get the heart rate relatively high and get the full body involved and burn quite a bit of calories uh, without necessarily having to think too much or come up with a complicated movement. Um, and so by doing backward sled, I'm involving the quads. While pushing, I'm involving the quads again, but along with some calves, hamstrings, glutes, chest, shoulders, etc., etc., etc. So between doing the backward and forward sled, I get a lot of muscle groups involved, get a decent amount of resistance at play without having to do too much thinking. Supersetting that with these sideways rows that I saw online recently. Tried it a couple of days ago just while playing around and found that it targets the upper back pretty well, upper mid back. And I like the movement quite a bit, so I'm throwing them in as a superset today. So, leaning and row. Uh, I hope the camera is picking this up. I kept looking at the camera lens over there, which is not ideal. Ideally, you want to look away from the direction you're rowing in the bottom position. So looks like this. Feel a good stretch in the shoulders and upper pec area, and utilizing the mid back to row yourself up. So yeah, kind of thought process behind the whole thing. Doing backward and forward sled involving the full body, doing a calisthenic movement.
Are you using that belt?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um, so, where was my thoughts? Yeah, so doing the backward and forward sled, I'm able to get a lot of big muscle groups involved, but it's just a plate on there, and it's not that heavy for me, so it gets the whole body involved with some resistance at play, which gets my heart rate going into like, I don't know, 90s to 100, so it's not that much, but it gets the whole body firing is the main point. Then by supersetting that with this, I'm able to do a calisthenic movement, which requires the core and stuff to stay active. Um, and I'm able to unilaterally focus on the back with this. By supersetting these two, I'm able to get the pretty much every muscle group in the body involved, which is my target for today. Since I feel a little sluggish, I want to do I want to tax my body, but not in a way that's overly taxing. If I go too heavy, I'm going to feel fatigued. I'm going to do stuff with bad form and put myself at risk of injury. But I still want to get movement in, so which is why the kind of exercises that I'm going to do today are going to be things that I usually do. So the sled I usually do, but much heavier. But by going lighter, it's manageable. It doesn't get me as fatigued. It gets a lot of muscle groups involved. By doing calisthenics, a calisthenic move like this, I'm able to keep my whole body engaged, keep my heart rate high from the sled, or like keep it high from the sled with this, get the whole body involved, etc. I think I was kind of redundant there. Gonna do this for a bit and then on to something else. I feel like I'm a little out of it today, even mumbling my words and stuff, or pronouncing them wrong, or finding it harder to come up with words. In any case, for the next set of movements, doing lateral sled drags. So, uh, we move forward often. I got done with a lot of backward walking, but a lot of sports are just day-to-day life, can involve quite a bit of lateral movement, and so by moving laterally, I'm able to target the abductors. The abductors are the muscles on the outside of the leg. While moving to my left, I'm targeting my right abductors, and while moving back, I'll be targeting my left abductors. One leg kind of stays relatively facing straight. The other leg comes across and pushes across. It looks like this. Good for targeting the outer glutes. And then switching and then coming back. The resistance is still pretty light, even for this movement. And so it lets my heart rate go up and get my full body involved without it being too fatiguing. Then moving into some oblique swings with the kettlebell. So one knee on the floor, other leg up, and going to swing. Getting the obliques and abs involved. switching sides after 10. So yeah, today I'm definitely feeling sluggish and stuff, but like all these, I mean, I don't know, depending on who's watching, this can either feel like an intense workout or a regular workout. But the whole idea being, on a day that I feel sluggish, I still have quite a bit that I can give. And if I would have opted to sit at home and not show up or whatever, all of this wouldn't have happened. And there's still quite a bit of stuff I'm doing. So, like, lateral sled isn't something that I've done in the past couple of days. That one movement with the TRX where I was rowing to the side, although I did try it out a couple of days ago, I never really did multiple sets of it. So, you know, if you ever feel too lazy or too tired to go to the gym, at least show up and do what you can. Do exercises that you otherwise might not do. Try out different mobility things, etc. Speaking of which, I haven't dedicated too much focused time to mobility in the past couple of days, so I am going to throw some mobility in. Uh, yeah, so that's another thing. If you're feeling too fatigued to do any of the heavy lifting kind of stuff, there's still stuff you can do from a mobility standpoint. Uh, more often, more people than not seem to not do mobility or just do stretching and stuff, which is not the most effective form of mobility. But yeah, gonna do this for a bit, then probably gonna do a landmine exercise, then some focused mobility work. So I said I was gonna do a landmine exercise, but decided to move into mobility instead. There's not enough time to fit the landmine stuff in. It's getting pretty late. Also, the workout's already been 2 hours and 10 minutes. Uh, yeah, spent a lot of time warming up, which is mainly why it's lasted this long. The reason for the long warm up was I was feeling sluggish, so it just took some extra time to kick things into gear. In any case, for the mobility exercise, doing cable good mornings, which used to be an exercise that I did a lot more often, but for whatever reason, I stopped doing them. Not for like no particular reason, just I guess complacency, or maybe they were getting too boring. But sometimes you have to stick to the boring things. Yeah. In any case, this is my favorite mobility exercise. I think it's the best bang for the buck for the posterior chain. And to do it, you need a cable machine, and I like to use the individual handles instead of doing two on one. Mostly because it spreads the weight evenly across the body. I'm going to move back and spread my legs till I feel a stretch in the groin area. I'm going to kind of straighten out the back, take a moment to assess where everything is, and now I'm going to slowly let the weight pull me forward. Slowly feeling a stretch through the calves into the hamstrings, into the glutes, into the lower back. Ah. Then, like, you should feel a threshold, like a point where you feel like you can't go further, and that's when you want to come up. And the next time you go down, you either want to hit that or try to go a little lower. I'm slowly letting the weight pull me forward. I'm not trying to rush things. I'm tucking my stomach in a little to create some room for my body to move forward. Ah, coming back off. Gonna go for 5 total. The other thing I'm focusing on is keeping my toes pointed out. They have a tendency to roll forward. Ah! Ah! Yeah, feels great on the hamstrings. I put it in quotes because it's pretty, I guess, painful in a good way when doing it, but I enjoy it because there's something about I don't know, about the muscles getting recruited the way they do during this movement that feels nice. It's like stretching out all the tightness, sort of. Gonna do 3 sets of this, then move into, uh, I guess, an upper body mobility thing before I head to the sauna. So for the final exercise, doing trap 3 raises. Trap 3, so there's 3 layers of traps. One is these guys over here attached to the neck. Then one is in the mid back. That's kind of, I guess, also called rhomboids. Then there's one more muscle below that, which is called the trap 3. Now, what I'm unsure of is if the trap 3 and rhomboids are 2 different muscles or same muscle, different name, but it doesn't matter. Trap 3 is below the rhomboids, and um, yeah, it's weak in most people, and strengthening it can get rid of lower back pain and some shoulder issues. So, which is why it's a mobility exercise, in my opinion. Um, so what I'm going to do is have my chest supported against the bench and raise the kettlebells. I'm using 10-pound kettlebells. It's most people are pretty weak at this, including me, because it's a muscle that rarely gets trained. I'm gonna do 10 of these. Suspending my hand at the bottom, trying to get momentum out, making things feel the way I want them to feel, and then gonna do 10 reps, 3 sets, and then on to the sauna. Not going to do an outro today or anything. Maybe I should just record a long straight set and rant right now. Yeah, pretty much got to the gym late because of internet and issues and getting a haircut. Then came to the gym, was feeling sluggish. So decided to spend some extra time warming up to get the endorphins going and take a personal account of the body to see what my body is willing to do. On days that I feel sluggish, it usually means that I shouldn't go heavy, because going heavy requires a certain amount of focus, and if you can't get your body into that state, it's not a good day to go heavy. So, for example, if you're doing like a powerlifting thing and it asks you to do 3 by 3 on a certain day, but if you feel too sluggish, I think trying to do it anyway puts you at a risk for injury. And you should probably not do the 3 by 3 and do something else and then come back to the 3 by 3 on a different day. Uh, but that being said, like I'm not someone who one personally believes in rest days. I think in maybe like deload days, so to speak, or like doing things regardless of how your body feels. So I still showed up today, and instead of doing like heavy, super intense stuff, I did stuff that I can do, which is stuff like mobility, relatively lightweight sled, some movements that, so like the sideways row and stuff that uh, aren't too taxing from a resistance standpoint, but still it's like new movements or slightly difficult movements that gets my body working, but not necessarily uh, whatchamacallit, but not necessarily too fatiguing. So there's a kind of fatigue called CNS fatigue, which is central nervous system fatigue, which usually ends up happening from doing a lot of heavy stuff or a lot of physically taxing stuff. So I think a combination of doing like a lot of kettlebell juggling yesterday and I guess pretty heavy sled the day before that has my body feeling a little sluggish. So instead of taking a day off, I focused on mobility, relatively light movements, and still got gains out of today. Instead of slacking at home and feeling like, you know, feeling like a loser. But that being said, I'm not frowning upon people who take rest days. It's just my personal mindset that makes me feel bad when I take a rest day. And so I try to get at least something in that makes me feel like I've worked enough. Like today's workout was by no means an easy workout. It's still pretty taxing, but just taxing in a different way. Uh, I don't know, to take an uh, I guess MMA context or a fighting context. People have days where they practice technique, and then they have days where they spar. Sparring would be considered hard days, and if you spar every day, the more popular, more popularly, it is said that it's probably bad for you. However, if you divide your time, I'm not an MMA expert, by the way. I just enjoy watching and learning and practicing sometimes. But the point I'm trying to make is uh, instead of, they divide up the days. So like if someone's injured, they make them only go through the technique and not necessarily go through sparring, or even with the technique they're very reserved in the kind of techniques that they use. So instead of like letting them stop all the way, they make someone who's injured at least do something, provided they can do whatever that is, you know. There's definitely limits. So like, let's say you break an arm pretty bad, then you probably can't do anything. But I think even if you break an arm, you should probably go on a walk, stuff like that, if that makes sense. So you should always try to do something. At least that's my personal belief. You know, if you don't want to do any weight training or running, you can stretch. Uh, there's so many kinds of things that your body can do. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion. If someone has a lot, like, is having a lot of success by having just one day that that you like just play video games or something, then it is what it is. Um, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that if it works for you. Like, the biggest thing you have to consider when getting into fitness is what will keep you in it day after day. Like, what will keep you coming back? What keeps me coming back is, I guess, this discipline and routine that I built for myself, that I have to keep coming back. The more days that I get off, the more like I want to stray away and try other things. Um, like, maybe that's not working out. Like, should I maybe play more video games? Or I don't play any video games now, but I used to. Spend more time watching TV shows or whatever. Usually, if I'm not at the gym, I'm thinking about food or something. So then it'll just get me to overeat. So anyway, I've built this sort of mindset that I need to do something challenging every day. And that gets me coming to the gym every day. Uh, and I like being someone who can do challenging stuff, which keeps me coming back. But that's the mindset that works for me. Also, being creative at the gym, trying out different kinds of fitness, different kinds of working out, gets me, makes things more mentally exciting for me to come to the gym. So that's why I'm able to come every day without taking a rest. However, if someone, let's say, their first introduction to fitness was long distance running, and they absolutely hate it, then eventually they're going to stop. It's going to become harder to come. So working out is not always going to be fun. So a part of it is definitely the discipline to show up. But the other thing you really want to optimize for in the long run is to find something that will get you coming back. So for me, no one discipline, so like bodybuilding or powerlifting or the kettlebell stuff or the mobility stuff, no one of them individually is appetizing enough for me to come every day. But a combination of all of these allows me to be creative, and there's an excitement as far as exploring in the gym, like, oh, what can my body do? And that aspect of it keeps me coming back. So that's a way to think about fitness, is where find which is why I say there is no one, like, there's no good or bad exercises. Like, if your real life is sedentary, and if you hate everything that I'm doing, but machines get you excited, then that's better than doing nothing. So, so yeah, this is definitely a long rant. I hope people are gonna listen, but it is what it is. Yeah, so do the things that keep you coming back. That's the main idea. That keep you coming back in the long run. And yeah, I guess we'll end on that note. That was 3 sets. Gonna head to the sauna now. Not gonna stay there too long. But yeah, that'll be it for today's video. See you all tomorrow.